Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being part of the conversation. This is 21st Century TV, live and interactive, right? We get to talk with each other. Well, through your comments, right? Wherever you're watching this live, hit the comments. Please smash the like button if you like what you're hearing. We appreciate that. Telling the algorithms that this is good stuff to spread around the internet. But also through your comments, we watch what's coming in so that we can interact. You got a question, you got a comment, you think I'm all wet with something that I'm telling you, let me know. Now, the reason you're watching is probably because of the headline: Snow in the Sahara Desert. Really? Snow in the Sahara Desert. Are you kidding me? Not at all. Not at all. On this day in 1979, it snowed in the Sahara Desert. And that does relate to being able to scale your business in 2022. We'll come to that. Hang on a second. We're going to come back around to that. Right now, we're going forward with a conversation about story. Just think about that. Snow in the Sahara Desert, 1979. Now, that could be that's a clickbait, as we'd call it today, right? A clickbait kind of headline. It's like snow in the Sahara Desert. Really? It actually snowed in the Sahara Desert in 1979. Imagine what that must have been like. You're standing there looking out across the desert. The sun's beating down on the sand. You can see the rolling hills that just seem to go on forever. Nothing but sand. Dry. But yet the breeze kind of bites. Makes your nose sting a little bit. Your ears sting a little bit. And there's that quiet. Right? The heat mirage that you see on the horizon, way out on the horizon, where it kind of bubbles and boils, that's missing, which is kind of odd. Why is that? And then that quietness, not the quiet of the desert, of the open space and open empty space, but it's that kind of that muffled sort of sound like snow. And sure enough, it's coming down. Big, thick, dry flakes of snow. See, this is really about, and how this relates to scaling your business. This is about story and the use of story in your business. Why is your business the choice for customers? Why should top talent come and work for you? Which you need, right? You need a top talent to help scale up your business. You can't do it alone. So think about that. What fired your imagination as a youngster? So we're going to be using a lot of on this day in history today, because this is what led me to this topic. It wasn't what I had originally planned, but in reading this, I'm going, this is something that's valid. It's great for a Friday as you're going into your weekend, especially a long weekend with President's Day on being celebrated on Monday. So here, think about this. What fired your imagination as a youngster? What stories? On this day in 1885, Mark Twain released Huckleberry Finn. Did you read Huckleberry Finn as a youngster? I did. And it fired my imagination. Here's this kid, not too far off from my age at the time, out running around, doing his thing, rafting down the river, seeing where the trail led. Now, there's a lot more in those stories. Some very hopeful. There's some dark reality of the time that it was written. There's a lot more in those stories. What stuck with me, what sticks with me today when I go, oh, Huck Finn, it's that image of Huckleberry Finn rafting on the river, seeing what kind of adventure he can get into. That's what gripped my imagination. What gripped your imagination as a youngster? What stories made you go, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be part of that. What about on this day in 1977, the maiden voyage of Space Shuttle Enterprise? 1977. See, space shuttles were 1970s technology, and they flew well into the 21st century. So a lot of story and a lot of lessons to be learned from that. We'll come back to that in later episodes. But 1977, the Enterprise flies in reality. Do you know any Star Trek fans? Are you a Star Trek fan? I was as a kid. And just watching that and going, wow. And that's the same year the first Star Wars movie came out. 1977. Incredible, huh? On this day, 1977, the Enterprise takes flight in reality. Well, it was attached to a 747, At the time, it wasn't being launched into space, but that was considered the maiden voyage of Enterprise in 1960. So what fired your imagination? As a kid, those things fired my imagination. It got me reading Scientific American, where I always saw what were called Hughes scopes, an award-winning series of, I didn't realize it at the time, but they're advertisements to encourage people to come work for Hughes Aircraft. They talked about the cool technology they were working with, things that their scientists and engineers were achieving, and through Hughes Research Labs in Malibu, California, still achieved to this day. Reading those Hughes scopes led to my opportunity to go to work for Hughes Aircraft, fresh out of college, because they came on campus and interviewed. Like, oh, Hughes Aircraft, they're the ones that are working with the satellites, the lasers, all this neat stuff I've read about for years in Scientific American. A lot of the reasons that I went in a technology path earlier in my career led to some amazing places. Stories for another time. What do you do? What stories do you tell that make prospective employees the team members that you need when your company name comes up? They go, oh, I want to be part of that. See, the use of story is crucial, especially in these days. It's such a cluttered environment, right? People are getting bombarded with advertisements, with social media and everything on their cell phones. They carry it around with us. You see a lot of people like this looking down wherever they're at. They're not talking with each other. They're looking at what's on the screen. So what story are you using to break through all that noise to connect with the people that you want to recruit, that you need to recruit onto your team in order to scale up, the prospective customers that you need to connect with? So they'll go, oh, yes, I want to see what that company's got to offer. If there's any way I can do it, I want to do business with them. Right? What story are you using so you get those kinds of those kinds of responses? As a leader, story is no longer just a powerful tool for you. Story is a necessary tool for you to be able to connect with people's hearts and minds in a way that other leaders are not, or in some ways are. Look at it like a Steve Jobs was a master at story. The story of the products that they developed, that he developed with Apple, creating complete categories like the iPod, the portable MP3 player. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the first, but it made that space. The iPhone made the smartphone market that we're so familiar with today. So think about that, and it expand your ability to influence, whether it's prospective customers, members on your team, your kids, even your spouse, for that great vacation. My wife and I are talking about where we're going to be going for taking a day trip for our next anniversary, which is coming up shortly. And it's the story around that's going, yeah, that's going to be a fun day. It just adds so much more to life. You have to have use of story. Dan Kennedy, who's one of the top, if you don't know of Dan Kennedy, you need to. He's one of the top copywriters in the world, a leader in direct response marketing. And he talks about, being able to tap into the conversation that's already going on in your prospective customer's mind. It's what the marketing is about for your company. It's story. You need that story because they got a story going on in their head, right? What story's going on in your mind right now? Hopefully it's, how can you're thinking about how you can use this, and you're not thinking about lunch or whatever's coming next, and hoping I'll wrap up soon, which I will. But as you scale your business, story is necessary to get in people's minds and heart, capture the minds and hearts, so that your company elicits that response. Go, oh, yeah, I want to be part of that. Just like I did when Hughes Aircraft came on our campus when I was graduating from college. Freshly minted with some electronics from school. We did some amazing things in lab. Our graduating class innovated some incredible senior projects that went on to become products that you would recognize. But again, story for another time. If you want to hear about that in future episodes, put it in the comments. But I had that response going, yeah, I want to be part of that company. And I was proud of the time that I worked for Hughes Aircraft. Incredibly, still to this day, very proud of having been part of that. And most of the companies that were in, some not so much, but most of the companies I worked for had that kind of response. It's going, "Oh, yeah, I want to be part of that because of what they're doing." So what are you doing with that? It's because coming back to the um, where we started with snowing in 1979 when it snowed in the Sahara Desert. So think also about contrast, right? 1979 snows in the Sahara Desert. On this day in 1899, it was 80 degrees in San Francisco. Now, you might not think that's odd because San Francisco is in California and it's warm, right? Not San Francisco. San Francisco is more temperate and not a cold place. This is February. I grew up in places where cold, sub-zero weather was not uncommon in February, but 80 degrees in San Francisco in February is very uncommon. The average temperature in San Francisco on this day, February 18th, is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Today, the predicted high is 61 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So about average, just almost a full 20 degrees warmer than what we consider average in 1899. How could you use that kind of a contrast in a story to grip people's imaginations to make a point? To make it a point to go, look, 1899, it's snowing or it's 80 degrees in San Francisco. 80 degrees in San Francisco, 1899 on this day. But on this day in 1979, it was snowing in the Sahara Desert. Now, I don't know what they're saying in 1899. I do know what the headlines were in 1979. And the big thing in 1979 is like, look, this is evidence of the truth that we are all going to die in the oncoming ice age. It's imminent. We're overdue. We didn't. A little bit different path from there, right? That was the headlines. But how are you using story for those kinds of points? Let's see. Make sure I haven't missed anything. So I want to make sure you're giving you some good stuff here today. So as you scale your business, again, what story is it that attracts top talent? That gets you fired up when you tell it. When you're just going, yeah, man, this is be part of this with me because I'm boom. Here's the mission I'm on, the charging the hill. This is what we're doing with this company, why it really exists. This is how we're making lives better for for our customers. Speaking of that, here's an example that we used. Company that that was going to close because they just couldn't make it work in Los Angeles. Right, high cost Los Angeles for historically high cost, lots of regulation, not exactly a business friendly environment, and they were going to close the company. Over 180 people work there, and been around for a long time. But we used the story of how, when we were working on turning that scenario around, we talked with the team that needed to be part of that effort, that needed to demonstrate it could be done, and then lead taking it home from there, taking it company wide. Then we talked to them about how they could be the best in industry. And really, they already were. They just hadn't been given the right tools. And if they're willing to step up and pick up those tools and learn how to use them, they could be the best in the industry. And not just physical tools, but thought tools, how they looked at things, taking what the best in the world were doing at other companies, not even in their industry, from other industries, and make use of it there. They could be the best in their industry. They could show everybody they could do the impossible and make a factory profitable, not just profitable, but one of the tops in their industry for performance and profitability in Los Angeles. We used the story of how their customers needed them, how what they did benefited their customers, how if they made the changes, how their customers' lives would be better. And beyond that, the effect that their customers had on their customers because of the work that they did. We used that story to keep the energy up because we worked hard to make that work. We talked about how they create an example for their family. Most of them had kids. And by being able to do the impossible, making that company profitable, not just profitable, but something that people would want to find out about how they did it, what they were doing, because their performance was at such a high level within their industry. Everybody's going, dang, man, that was impossible. How did they do that? There's no way that could have been done. I have to see it for myself. The message that would send to their kids in terms of how they could do the impossible, how they can work as a team. There's so many messages, how their conduct in their profession would affect their families as well. And you know what? They kept the company open. They increased margins with, profit margins 26% in the first year, and it got better from there. It's amazing. Over 180 families dependent on that company didn't lose those jobs, and they became a top performer in the industry. Everybody went, how did you do that? We want to learn from you. And they did. They're still open to this day. And it's been 20 years. So what story are you using to compel your team to achieve the impossible? To compel your prospective customers to go, "Oh, yes, I want to do business with them," right? The people you want to recruit, your top talent, your customers, and anybody that really knows about your company. So you elicit that response where they just go, "Oh, yes, I want to be part of that." Either as a customer, as part of the team, a way to promote the company because they're going, "Yes, we want to do anything we can to help you achieve and do more." Story, that's your key. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Put in your comments. I want to hear how you're using story. What is your company's story? What is your story? Don't make it a book length. Give us, you know, 4 or 5 sentences, not long run-on sentences, not 1,000-word sentences, but just describe it a little bit. What's the story? What's the basis of the story for eliciting that response when people hear the story of your company and they go, "Oh, yeah, I want to be part of that." Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.